Yes, welcome into Sports Bet Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, weekend preview edition. Big game breakdown's going to be awesome. The Rockets and the Thunder. Westbrook against Harden. We also have the Sunday night game. The Cowboys trying to wrap up the division against the Giants. Seattle and Green Bay, and the Steelers take on the Bills. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books coming up in a second. Thursday night football. The Chiefs get the win. Teddy, they're -3 in turnovers. A wild game, strange game. 28 second quarter points, only 3 combined points in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs keep doing what they do. They're like Alabama right now, a non-offensive touchdown every single week. I mean, Tyreek Hill gives them a dimension that they really didn't have over the first half of the season. He's a difference maker for that team. And let's not forget, Kansas City, they won a playoff game last year. Then they went to New England and gave the Patriots a game in the playoffs. That was no blowout. You know, what's the upside for Kansas City? We've been talking about that the stats aren't good for the Chiefs, and they haven't been. But when you're winning games and you're -3 in turnovers, as you know, Pauly, that doesn't happen very often in the NFL, let alone covering the spread as a favorite when you're -3 in turnovers. That's doing something special.
Tyreek Hill's becoming Deion Sanders. You can't kick to him. He's that good. He's that dangerous. Also, Carr, 17 of 41 for 117 yards. Second fewest game by a QBs with that many attempts. Jesse Palmer has the fewest. But I thought Collinsworth was dynamite on the broadcast. Noah Semele, who was out because of this illness. Otherwise, they would have ran the ball to try to get the Chiefs out of that two-deep safety look. Crabtree left with an injury late in the game. Cooper was wide open for a touchdown. I don't know, it got caught in the wind. He got lost in that one. Oh, man, tough loss for the Raiders. And the Chiefs just finding a way to get it done, Teddy. It's getting strange. If you had the under, found money.
Well, the second quarter was a sweat, but the second half, if you had the under, was easy money. Obviously, where they had one field goal after halftime. But the game was kind of opposite day when you think about it. The Raiders could get nothing going in the passing game. Their only offense all day was ground and pound. And the Chiefs all of a sudden got 3 different receivers catching big plays downfield, and they couldn't run the football effectively in that ball game. But, for Oakland, it's a bad loss. It's pretty clear they don't match up well against Kansas City. They've had problems in both meetings this year against the Chiefs. But the Raiders have nothing to be ashamed of. They won 6 in a row going into this game. Short week with travel. They didn't play well. Oakland's got a better game in them than the one we just saw.
Let's see how they respond. Weird how Carr played. Looked like the pinky gave him some trouble. NBA line
It was cold. It was really cold.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. That's fair. NBA line moves all over the place last night, but let's start with one that's fun to talk about. The Wizards were 5.5, 218 against the Nuggets. You were watching this game closely. What the hell happened in the fourth quarter?
Well, let's put it this way. The Nuggets had 81 points after a Gallinari dunk with just over 10 minutes left on the clock in the fourth quarter. 81 with 10 minutes left. They finished with 85. The Wizards got to 88 with 3:41 left. They finished with 92. And, of course, the game's sitting right on the number for most of the last 2 minutes. It's sitting right on 5. And I'm telling you, the possessions were insane. It's like brick, offensive rebound, turnover, offensive foul, brick, turnover. I mean, neither team wanted to win or cover. It wasn't just bad offensive basketball, Pauly. It was cringeworthy. It was the antithesis of the Rockets or the Warriors or the Cavs. Anywho, John Wall finally got fouled with 14 seconds left. He had a pair of free throws. The Wiz win by 7. Yeah, landed heads for Washington backers, but the game stayed under by 40. That's a right side if you had it.
Last 21 Denver possessions, 4 points, 9 turnovers. Come on. Here's a bad bet. Portland, +2, went off the favorite lane, 2.5 in Memphis. They blew a big lead in the fourth quarter. It's not hard, guys. The only guy who can score on Memphis is Gasol.
Yeah, Gasol scored 36. Everyone else on Memphis with 52. But that was enough. And, I mean, let's give the Grizzlies a lot of credit because they're defying all logic right now. Your point guard gets hurt. And Mike Conley's not a mediocre point guard. He's one of the top 10 point guards in the NBA. He gets hurt, all right? And then you have 5 straight games, all one-possession games in the final minute. And Memphis is 5-0 in those games. That's not supposed to happen when your point guard gets hurt. If the season ended today, the Grizzlies are 16-8 right now. I would name David Fizdale Coach of the Year. But, of course, David Fizdale's not winning Coach of the Year. It'll be someone from a team that has a better record than Memphis. But impressive so far. Gasol, a monster last night down the stretch.
Here's a bad bet. Heavy steam on the Warriors from 6.5 to 11.5. No Haywood, no Hood. and it was 29-5 early in the game. War was going to blow them out. Didn't happen.
No, and let's give the Jazz credit. They fought. They fought tooth and nail in this ballgame. And when you're down 29-5 early, remember, you talk about they had no Hayward and Hood. They're already without the starting point guard, George Hill. They're already without the starting power forward, Derek Favors. That's 4 starters out for Utah. They're down 24 to one of the 2 best teams in the NBA right off the gate. Right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. They're down 21 in the third quarter, but this is the NBA. Everybody makes a run, even minus 4 starters. Jazz cut the lead all the way to 5, ended up losing by 7, and all Quinn Snyder could do was pray, but he got his guys to fight hard and compete. Many NBA teams don't do that, and yeah, the first bettor who laid 6.5 with Golden State cashed his ticket. Everyone else pushed or lost. Was a good result for the house.
This is bad for the books. Big money for the 76ers. Pelicans bet down to 6. Can't be laying that. Trust the process. Sixers get the W.
Yeah, exactly. Big money on Philly. That was 9.5 bet down to 6. So a significant line movement, significant steam on that one. Philly's getting healthier, but I think most of that move was that the Pelicans can't be laying 9.5. And the Sixers went out rights by double digits. Their first road W of the season.
2.5-point move on the Raptors. They won by 14. This was a sexy pick to go to the playoffs. What's wrong with the T-Wolves?
Well, I mean, they can't play defense is what's wrong with the T-Wolves. Minnesota led by double digits early, but when it came down to getting stops, and this has been the case for the T-Wolves throughout the second half all season long. When it comes down to getting stops during crunch time, they can't get them. They're 2-14 when they allow 100 or more points, and they couldn't get a stop in the fourth last night. Outscored 36-21 in the final frame. Yeah, Minnesota was leading going into the fourth, ended up losing by 14, did not get the money.
All right, NFL market moves. Steam hits the road chalk on Thursday. Pittsburgh working its way towards 3 at Buffalo. And this, I understand this, the Redskins up to 2.5 at Philly. Don't like some comments from Peterson. Don't like the body language, and the Redskins dominated the first meeting.
Yeah, I'm no surprise that Washington's taking money against Philadelphia. The markets are viewing the Redskins as a playoff contender, and the Eagles as a last-place team. And I thought that line was a little bit short to begin with. The markets have corrected that mistake. Same story with Pittsburgh and Buffalo. That line looked a little bit short at first glance. The Bills have been getting a lot of respect in the markets in recent weeks. They were only 3 at Oakland last week. Now they're home, and they're going to be 3 to Pittsburgh, a pretty significant differential from where Buffalo was power rated just a week ago.
Atlanta up to 6.5 in LA against the Rams, and Dallas 3.5 now Sunday night.
Yeah, and of course, there's not going to be a whole lot of market support for the LA Rams. The Falcons coming off a loss to KC. The markets look at this as a bounce back spot for Atlanta, and the buy price for the wise guys on LA isn't going to be till that hits 7. As for Dallas, I think it was the Jason Pierre-Paul injury for the G-Man. He's going to be out long term. But the Cowboys have made everybody money all year long, even though they failed to cover the last 2 weeks. Not surprising that we're seeing Dallas money. They are respected in the markets in a way the Giants just aren't.
Arizona now road chalk in Miami up to 2, and will the Colts get to 7 at home against the Texans?
Yeah, and the Seahawks also, another one that's another road favorite. We talk about Arizona now, or road favorite at Miami. Seattle bet up to 3 at Green Bay. It's one road chalk after the next getting bet up. And Indy's sitting at 6.5 right now. It looks like this line could hit 7. There's not a lot of market support for Houston these days. We saw that last week. We're seeing it again this week. If you like the Colts, I bet them sooner rather than later.
More Bears money. Hell, Matt Barkley could be 2-0. And they don't trust the Lions to cover a big number at home. And they're betting the Niners again. This was a game they talked about in your Tuesday group meeting.
Yeah. For Chicago, we talked about earlier in the show where the markets didn't trust New Orleans to be laying 9.5. They got bet down to 6 in the NBA last night. Same story with the Lions. The markets don't look at Detroit as a team that's going to be covering a lot of spreads higher than a touchdown, hence the Chicago money. Remember, the Bears beat them earlier in the season. And yeah, the Tuesday group this week, the guys were telling me what a good bet San Francisco was. And here's that Niner money. Remember, San Fran minus 2.5. I can't fathom it, Pauly. I'm not laying points with the worst team in the NFL. I don't care how bad a spot it is for the other team. I don't care if the other team's got the worst quarterback. San Fran can't be laying, yet the markets say Yes, they can. And not only can they, let's bet it up a little bit.
All right, let's get the big game breakdown up next. The Rockets and the Thunder. And then we'll get to the NFL, the Steelers and the Bills. It's next on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Follow us on Twitter at Pauly Howard and at Teddy_covers. Live on sportsbookreview.com. One game in the association. This is going to be offensive firepower. Houston on the road to take on OKC. Houston, road chalk, 225.5 the total. Look at these numbers. Harden averaging 28.5 points per game, 11 assists per game, and 7.5 boards. Westbrook averaging 31 points per game, 11.5 assists, and 11 rebounds. The first meeting was 105-103. Houston gave that game away. OKC came away with the win, but the best one-on-one matchup in the league this season. Big edge to Westbrook in the first go-around. Harden was 4 of 16 for 13 points. Westbrook had 30, 9 assists, and 7 rebounds, and plus 12 in that one, Teddy.
That's what Westbrook does every game, man. And we talk about a 6'3" guy averaging 11 rebounds per game. It's insane what he's doing. When you talk about Oscar Robertson's like one of these legendary figures that you hear about from the 60s. I never saw him play. You know, I'm an old guy and I never saw him play. And when you talk about approaching Oscar Robertson type stats, what Westbrook's done is insane. But we call it the head-to-head matchup. It's not really a head-to-head matchup. Andre Roberson is the guy who guards James Harden on most possessions. And he's the guy who shut Harden down, as you mentioned. 13 points on 4 of 16 shooting. And, of course, the 6 turnovers. Both guys had 6 turnovers. That tells us they may have been forcing some of the action, a little bit of ego involved in this game. But, as you mentioned, the Rockets, they led by 5 going into the fourth. They went cold down the stretch. Only 13 points in the fourth quarter on 6-21 shooting in the first meeting. You don't necessarily expect that type of cold shooting from Houston twice in a row.
I love this team. I liked them before the season. Harden to win the MVP, the Rockets to win the division, the win total over. They're 15-7. I'm not that surprised. But the way they're getting it done under Dan D'Antoni, you know, offense very good, the defense bad, which was expected. But the pace has been nothing special. 11th in pace, 4th in offense, 21st in defense, Teddy.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're 11th in pace, we think of D'Antoni as a guy who's going to be number 1 in the NBA in pace. And that means that the markets initially, Rockets over, Rockets over, Rockets over. Hasn't played out quite that way, but of course, when you have the number 4 offense and number 21 defense, you're going to have a fair few high-scoring games as well. So it's not like Houston's been anything resembling an under team, even though their pace hasn't been as fast as we thought it would be.
What do you think? I mean, they grabbed America's attention when they won in double overtime at Golden State, then got in at 5 in the morning in Denver, and then won that game and went 4-1 on that road trip.
Sure, Houston's a team you can make money with, or you probably should have been making money with already. As we're seeing with tonight's point spread, and the money's come on the Rockets here, -1, there are even some -1.5s out there. The days, and not to say that Houston's not a really good team, but their bargain bin price days are over. The markets have caught up to how good the Rockets are playing.
All right, NFL now. Live on sportsbookreview.com. Steelers in Buffalo will call Pittsburgh 2, 47 the total. 60% chance of snow. Game temp 32 degrees. Wind chill 25. Steelers have been looking for this youth movement on defense, but Harrison and Timmons have been a spark that they've needed down the stretch. Harrison forced the safety on the holding penalty in the end zone against the Giants, and Timmons had the 58-yard interception return. Where's this coming from, Teddy?
Well, let's let Ryan Shazier tell us, the linebacker. Quote, "It's great to see both of them playing like that. It means a lot because it set the tempo and let guys know this is how we need to play. They've been doing this for years. The younger guys get to see that they can do it also. Guys are just feeding off their energy." It's the Steelers defense that wasn't healthy for most of the season. They're much healthier right now and over the last 3 weeks. And again, they haven't faced the best offense in the NFL. They did shut down the Giants last week, a pretty good offense, even though they can't run the football. And over the last 3 weeks, Pittsburgh has held their foes to an average of just 10 points per game. And when you talk about those weather conditions with the chance of snow, with the wind chill in the 20s, the ability to get stops and key stops. You know, we saw them do it on Thanksgiving night against Indy. You saw them do it in the red zone against the Giants last week. Those cold days, 1 or 2 stops makes a big difference, especially when we're talking about a game that's still, at this time, being priced at less than a field goal. Although, as we talked about earlier, Pauly, I'm not convinced this number's going to hold. I would think the Steelers will be 3 by the time this one kicks off.
Well, I remember we were talking about this after the Monday night loss in Seattle because they should have won that game. How is this team around 500? Because Taylor looked so good. That might have been the best game he's ever played. Since then, they realized that Taylor is just an athletic guy that can make plays, but he's not consistent. Only 11 touchdown passes in 348 attempts, 29th in yards per pass, 31st in sack percentage. Is he handling the pressure too? He didn't handle the media well in the Wednesday press conference.
Well, look, I mean, Taylor's going to get a lot of blame for the mediocrity that's ensued in Buffalo this year, but he hasn't had a healthy receiving core all year long. And they've been shuttling wide receivers in and out of that lineup. They've got weapons. They just haven't been able to get them on the field at the same time. But a QB with that kind of mobility is not supposed to be 31st in the NFL in sack percentage. He's got to be quicker moving out of the pocket. And you're right, he got a little testy at the press conference on Wednesday. Quote, critics are going to critique. It's in their job title. I mean, whether it's unfair or not, it's going to happen. Just have to deal with it. Ignore it. Continue to keep playing football. I don't let those things affect me, whether I think it's fair or not. It's going to happen. I've taken everything that y'all have stood up here and asked me right on the chest. It doesn't affect me emotionally or physically. I take it every week. So whatever y'all want to blame, I'll take that. Like I said, my job is to get the team into a position we can win on Sundays. Can I be better? Yes. But it doesn't just take me. It's a collective effort out there on the field each and every Sunday. Everything he said there is true, Pauly, but it doesn't negate the fact this is a young QB that's under a lot of pressure right now as the Bills fighting to end the NFL's longest playoff drought.
See if Rex can fix the defenses. They were lit up against the Raiders. Up next, two great games. Seattle hits the road to take on Green Bay, and Sunday night, Dallas in New York to play the Giants in the play of the day. That's next on SportsBit, Betting Insight Today.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping it up on SportsBit, Pauly and Teddy, Betting Insight Today, SBRPicks.com. Big game breakdown continues. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Seahawks and the Packers. Seattle 3 on the road, 46.5. Cloudy. Game temperature, 27 degrees. Wind chill, going to feel like 19. Two of the best December QBs around. Rodgers 21-10. Wilson 16-3. Packers like December at home. They can keep throwing. Heating units under Lambeau Field keep it from freezing. Took a while, but Jordy Nelson coming off the slow start. He had 8 for 91 against Philly Monday night and 8 for 118 and a score against Houston and some big catches in that win, Teddy.
Yeah, he sure did. And that's what the Green Bay offense was lacking for most of the season. They've not been lacking it the last couple of weeks. Mike McCarthy, quote, I don't know how much more Jordy needs to prove. He's going through what every great player goes through in the first year back from major injury. He practices every day. Those are the little things that are probably most important. And what McCarthy said there is very true. You know, when you're having a guy who had completely shut down from running, from football for a year, it's going to take some time to get back in the flow. But Jordy Nelson's back in the flow right now. And you look at the quote from Jared Cook, the tight end. There are things that he does, Jordy Nelson, that you can't really coach. There are things that he does that he puts his mark on, his stamp. He plays above everybody else while he's out there. Good thing for Green Bay that Jordy Nelson back at or near 100%.
Well, here we go with Seattle now. No Earl Thomas. Pete Carroll, quote, he's a very special guy. Hard to replace a guy like that. We're not trying to do that. We're going to get the backup safety, Steven Terrell, out there and play the game he knows how to play and expect him to do real well, end quote. A little bit of both yesterday. Last week, Carolina couldn't tackle, couldn't make any plays on defense, or Seattle fixed that offensive line a little bit.
Well, that's the question. I mean, can that offensive line hold up on the road in front of a tough crowd? Carolina brought nothing last week, and I think the markets are looking at Seattle's win over Carolina as being not just meaningful, really meaningful. Like, here come the Seahawks. We've seen 3 different games this year. You know, we're only in week 13. We've seen 3 different games in which the Seahawks have failed to score an offensive touchdown. One week the offensive line holds up. The next week it doesn't. Russell Wilson was dynamite last week Let's see him do it again in these conditions and win by margin. Laying 3 here seems to me a tad bit too high.
All right, we'll get back to this coming up. Sunday night, can the Cowboys wrap it up? And also, if they get a Seattle loss, this could be for the bye. And the 1 seed in the NFC, they're 3.5 now, 47.5 in New York on NBC. Chance for snow. Game temperature 34 degrees. Cowboys relying on Dak and Elliott. Nothing new there. And now, huge with the Giants, Teddy. JPP out, at least for the regular season.
Yeah, and each of these games we've previewed here in Big Game Breakdown on Sportsbet, we're talking about a chance of snow showers and temperatures at or below freezing. But in all of these games, all 3 of them that we've just talked about, southwest wind, the wind's blowing 5 miles an hour, 7 miles an hour, 9 miles an hour. Wind is your biggest impediment to scoring. Not cold, not snow. In fact, if you look at snow games tend to go over the total. So as we get closer to game day, be aware of that. The markets tend to knee-jerk when it comes to snow and bet this stuff down. And we all remember that Eagles-Lions games a couple years back?
Yeah, don't remind me. It was
Pauly, that was 7-0 in the third quarter. And guess what? Everyone got real tired. Next thing you know was big play, flew over the total. And that game was in the 50s before kickoff. So, yeah, the Cowboys can win at least a tie for the NFC East with a win in this ball game. The Giants just lost Jason Pierre-Paul, and he was a guy that we've talked about a couple times on this show. Landon Collins, the safety, talking about the impact of the JPP injury. Quote, "We're not done. Trust me on that. JPP is one of the best players in the defense, one of the best players on the team, but you don't stop playing just because you lose a player like that. We have other players on this team. We all need to step up. It's not a matter of giving up now. It's a matter of doing more and fighting even harder. I still believe in this team. I absolutely do." So positive comments there, at least for the G-men, but no question, JPP's absence will be felt. They need his pass rush, and they're not going to be getting it.
Yeah, one correction. Cowboys win. The division's over. It's all wrapped up. Cowboys D still vulnerable. Football Outsiders having 25th overall. Base stats, yards per play, 27th. Sack percentage, 29th. Interceptions, 32nd. Yards per drive, 28th. We know about these great weapons that the Giants have with those 3 stud wide receivers, but Eli's got to get them involved and get Beckham involved early.
Yeah, well, it was Cruz last week who wasn't getting the looks, and he got grumpy.
Yep.
Beckham was yelling at the refs, and he got grumpy. And, they're a little bit mercurial, these Giants. And Manning and McAdoo have had this confused look on their face on a pretty consistent basis. It's been an underachieving offense. They haven't been able to run the football. And the passing game, they have these downfield weapons. We expect lots of big plays from the Giants. Haven't gotten the big plays on a steady enough basis. Haven't gotten the red zone execution. And yet, they're still sitting here very much in the postseason mix. And they're going against a defense that Football Outsiders doesn't like very much. And, Dallas has been able to control the flow of so many of these games this season just because their offense plays slow, the defense is on the sidelines, and they go on these long, time-consuming drives. But when you're 32nd in interception percentage and 29th in sack percentage and 27th in yards per play and 28th in yards per drive, those are stats that you say, well, maybe there's a reason that the Cowboys have failed to cover each of the last 2 weeks. Maybe this team is just a notch or two overvalued in the betting market.
What do you think of McAdoo? They broke this down, I think, was MMQB, Monday Morning Quarterback, that Peter King site. 95% of the time, they use one formation on all their plays, and the guy's got a play sheet the size of a wine menu at your favorite steakhouse. I mean, it's a simplistic offense. Doesn't make any sense.
I don't think McAdoo's hopeless. He's not my favorite first-year head coach. I mean, that's fair enough, isn't it? I don't think he's hopeless, but it's a guy who's always been a coordinator who's now taking on additional responsibilities. And, how do you blame his team? The Giants have overachieved so far. They've probably have a better record than their overall stats and overall level of play would expect. So I say we give him credit rather than ripping him. But, again, not my favorite coach that I've seen this season.
The Mike Lombardi line, they're running a Ponzi scheme. You look at the numbers. How the hell does this team have a winning record when you see what's going on?
Well, look at the Chiefs. And the Chiefs, we keep on talking about Casey getting better and better, even with the Derek Johnson going out for the year. Although that's a bad loss for Kansas City.
Money time, play of the day, 35-20-1 on the football season. Back to Green Bay. What are we doing, Teddy?
We got to take the Packers, plus the 3, game number 128. Seahawks, up and down. They've been a real good December team. Guess what? So are the Packers. The price here is wrong. That's what we're taking advantage of. This is going to be a tight game. Plus 3 means a lot. Give me Green Bay, plus the field goal. That's our play of the day.
All right, fun show. There it is. Have a good weekend. We're back Monday to recap everything. And how about the Patriots and Ravens on Monday Night Football? And we'll run it all down, see how the books did, and recap it all on Monday. Thanks for watching. We'll see you then on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.